Welcome to the Explainer Dialogues. Earlier tonight, we looked at how various leaders have looked for means to find either vindication or rehabilitation by various paths, including election or simply outliving their critics, or in some cases, for a second generation to vindicate the first. Now tonight we're going to look at how this plays out in today's politics and with our current crop of leaders. So joining me are provocative political blogger Dean George Pocobo, Black and White Movement co-convener Lea Navarro, and Professor Ronald Holmes, President of Pulse Asia. Well, Professor Holmes, let me start off with you. We have the cases of the most famous one within living memory is of former President Joseph Estrada, who has run several campaigns, not even including himself, running his wife and his son as proxies to prove that he maintains the trust or the confidence or even the affection of the public. And in that sense, he's maintained his being a key player in our politics. There's also been discussions over the Marcoses, for example, in that there's a second generation of Marcos children who are prominent in politics, and whether their success, if it happens politically, represents a vindication of their father's memory. So how does this play out if you approach it from a more scientific point of view in terms of public opinion?
Well, in terms of public opinion, I don't think, for example, in the case of Estrada, you won't really see a dissipation insofar as the support for the former president, even with the wife and the son winning the Senate. Because, you know, if you look at the threshold for you to win a Senate slot, that's only probably about 35%. So you're talking about a third of the Filipino population, or these two relatives of the former president, getting their political capital from the former president. It's not a sizable portion. You're not talking about
so
the
there's a
majority
distinction.
of the
So
population.
you're pointing out a distinction between, let's say, the perception, let's say, of Estrada or even his family members that when they win, it's a national vindication, and the reality politically that it's about keeping your constituency intact.
It's keeping your constituency intact. I'm not saying a bulk of the constituency, but the other factor that you cannot discount will be the conditions that obtained at the time that the elections were held. You know, for example, in the 2004, in 2001, 2004 elections, you had people reacting to the manner by which the president was unceremoniously relieved. You had an event which was referred to by some who supported the current president as the mayhem of May, or the others as EDSA 3. But nonetheless, you do have people probably expressing sympathy. No? You have a former president who is not supposed to be, in a way, handled that bluntly, no? As if he were an ordinary criminal. And this was quite clearly expressed in the 2007 senatorial elections. You know, you have an administration that was increasingly seen as illegitimate, a leadership that was across the board, even from groups that supported that president when she first assumed the position, opposing her. So it's not just the person that you have to look at and how a specific individual rehabilitated himself or herself. There were certain conditions that people withdrew their support for individuals who were basically punishing or penalizing these individuals that you think are being rehabilitated. I think that's a difference between politicians who are trying to rehabilitate themselves right now, if I use your words, Manolo, from those who are dead. Then people can't rehabilitate themselves. Their memories will be a bit more distorted. People's memories of them will be short-lived, and they will change. They will become more positive.
Well, because also in the previous, in the earlier part of the show, we presented the example of Ninoy Aquino and even Doy Laurel, who in many ways were driven in an effort to posthumously vindicate their fathers, who had been controversial in their time. Now, is this something again that now they were involved in politics before surveys and that sort of thing were as entrenched in our politics and in finding out how people thought? But is this something that is just sort of mystically in the mind of the individual candidate, or is this something that the electorate will
I think the
see as a
circumstances
factor?
speak more than the people themselves. No? Ninoy was really pushed against the wall. No? He was really the arch enemy of Marcos himself. Doy was the first one to engage in what could be referred to, if you look at the current terms, as self-sacrifice, no? When he slid to the second position. In that regard, he did away with the reputation of being so intent in seeking the presidency. He knew that he would not win, so he slid. And to that extent, he also vindicated not only himself, but the name of his family. There are I would say that, you know, much as we would want to credit individuals for what we achieve, there are conditions and there are structures that impinge upon what we intend to achieve, and those conditions.
This brings up the question that if you're looking at the conditions, both in terms of what the public has been saying in terms of their expectations for the coming elections or elections in general, in how they decide on who to vote for, and finally in who they start off with trusting or distrusting among the political leadership. How does this play out in terms of what are the conditions that will be unique going into this coming election, and how are they similar to past elections, especially since EDSA?
We see now, at least in our data, there's more anticipation about the 2010 elections. 7 out of 10 Filipinos say that there's a big possibility that it will happen. And when you ask them what will happen if it doesn't push through, at least a majority are saying that there may be trouble. 17% are saying that they will support a protest and even join a protest. 45% will say that they will support but they will not join the protest. But even that 14 to 17% who are saying that they will protest, that's a sizable number. If you're talking about 52 million voters and you have 14% saying that they will go out in the streets, you know, probably that's a Metro Manila phenomenon, but that's already sizable to begin with.
But this is, you were saying this is a change compared to when? A year ago, 2 years ago?
The more significant change is seen insofar as voter preference. You only have about 3% of voters not expressing a preference for a president, a vice president, or a senator.
So most people have made up their minds.
Well, I guess with the presidency, people definitely make up their minds early because you're talking about a zero-sum game, you know, a single winner contest. So,
are you saying, Professor, that the electorate or the people are willing to be more involved now, or is this a dissipation of what we have been calling cynicism, apathy, because of certain things that have happened historically?
Actually, the support is there. The support is constant. You have a majority, a significant majority, saying that they support causes. Even at the time of the Hello Garcia scandal, there was support, no, for the.
But they didn't come out into the streets.
Again, that's the key, Leah. They will not go out. They will not join protests. And it's the same percentages we're seeing right now.
Well,
they don't see this as an avenue by which you can compel leaders to submit to their accountability.
There may be a new factor, though, and that's automation. I think we cannot discount the effect of that. It will change, I think,
it
the
might
way.
Excite people.
No.
Yeah.
Hang on. I just want to make this point that really you cannot discount that as a new development that may change the way people think of the elections. You know, Representative Teddy Boy Locsin made this point several weeks ago when there was all this brouhaha about whether automation would be approved or not. He said, you know, the youth in particular could be more participative. Because just the simple fact that you're now shading always instead of having to write out the names.
But Dean, this falls into our original question to Professor Holmes, which is, again, what are the sort of issues or trends or the general atmosphere you're seeing that sets apart 2010 and on one hand and makes it similar to past exercises on the other?
We see people basically expressing preference for more senators. No? The mean and median. For example, right now, 57% of the Filipinos express preference for 12 senators. That's a full slate.
Historically, they have never...
Historically, you have mean or medians of about 8 to 10, depending also on the socio-demographic group. The rural areas would have less names in pre-electoral surveys identified for senator. Now, going to the automation, in the past when you express preference for 12, when you start writing it up in a ballot that's long, you tend to end at number 7. So it depends on whether you're number 1, number 2, number 3. That's what is referred to as unconscious junking, because you're already tired of writing. Automation would assist at least the carryover of this preference, because you just have to shade.
Was mabilis.
Only problem is whether people are used to it, you know. It's the culminant
Experts are very used to it. They take tests all the time that way.
No, but then, you know, I'm an educator. We try testing by way of optical media scanners. And again, it's the resolution of the shade. Also, when you make a mistake, I think in the current system, if you make a mistake and you cause it out, it's counted as overvoting, and your ballot may be spoiled. So in that regard, you're looking at systems that have to be perfected so that at least whatever is expressed in the ballot, like the Florida issue in the U.S., is really seen.
No, but I would only
Okay,
suggest
but
that
we're going
perhaps,
to go to that because that suggests
sige.
one of the
trust
changes will be the introduction of technology. So the
Yes.
explainer dialogue will return after this.